podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, last week we covered the ACC. I don't know if we had any hot takes, but we had some takes. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. It's on a playlist on our YouTube channel of our 2023 season preview. We're going to continue with preview season tonight with the Pac-12. Daniel, we love the Pac-12. We might be Southeast boys, but we love the Pac-12.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously our connection is David Cobb, CBS. He is a Pac-12 guy, even though he went to school in the SEC. He is
That's right.
covering the Pac-12, and so we may have a little more empathy for him. But there's something great about some Pac-12 after dark, so it's a soft spot in our heart. But man, the Pac-12 is deep this year. There is a lot of teams that can be in the upper half of the league. All of them could challenge for New Year's Six bowls. Wouldn't be surprised with some of these schools. There's about 4 or 5 I feel good about. I think they've got a solid core group of teams. Maybe the best upper middle class in college football. I don't know.
It's a good analogy because I do think that I could say confidently, I think they're going to have 6 top 40 teams this year.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards 6 top 30 teams this year. We'll see. And when we talk about them, we'll see. But I'm excited. And we'll talk about, is there a gap in the top half, bottom half of the Pac-12? We can talk about it. Let's do what we did last week. We're going to go in order of win total, starting with the highest win total, going down to the lowest. We're going to start with the favorite to win the Pac-12 at 9.5 wins, the USC Trojans. USC coming off of a season in which, hey, fans are saying if Caleb Williams doesn't go down in that Pac-12 championship, that USC goes on to beat Utah, rides off into the college football playoff, and just gets served on a platter to Georgia. But what an accomplishment. But they don't. They lose to Utah. Utah wins the Pac-12 last year, but still in year one, 11-1 for Lincoln Riley. And I mean, impressive. Use the portal and excellent year one. I blew away my expectations, and I thought, I didn't think they'd be 5-7, but I didn't think they'd go 11-1. So coming into this season, 9.5 is the win total. Favorite to win the Pac-12. How are you feeling about the Trojans?
Well, obviously everybody knows Caleb Williams, and everyone knows he's going to be, in that Heisman race again after winning it last year. Probably going to be the number 1 quarterback taken. Lincoln Riley, obviously just one of the best play caller savants in the game. Not enough gets talked about with the defense, specifically with defensive coaching. Someone I follow a good bit is Dave Bartu with College Football Matrix. He has a rating system that he uses when he helps search firms find coaches for open jobs. He's big on coaching carousel, and he's like, sometimes guys just like to hire who they know, and that's exactly what Lincoln Riley did with hiring Alex Grinch, because he talks about how he's ranked in the 120s of defensive coaches. They've actually got a good defensive staff based on the metric numbers, just not a good defensive coordinator. So he said everything that he's seen thus far does not indicate that he believes that they'll turn anything around on the defense. So what that does is it scares me. Obviously, they need to have good recruits and all that kind of stuff. They bring in Bear Alexander transferring from Georgia. They've still got Corey Foreman, who came in last year, who's a 5-star. They've got talent on that defensive line. We'll see what happens. Offensively, they brought in transfer Marshawn Lloyd, former 5-star, who's a running back at South Carolina. Never was quite healthy where he could put it all together. Maybe he has one special year here, in LA. It really comes down to the schedule for me. What we got them at 9.5 is their over under. Is that right, Jacob?
9.5.
9.5. Well, their first 6 games, I think, are slam dunks for them to win.
They should be 6-0. Yeah.
Their last 6 games that I have a problem with. I think that they start hitting, they play at Notre Dame, come home and play Utah. They go to Cal, which, look, it's tougher than their first 6 games. And then they come home, play Washington, go to Oregon, and then come home and play UCLA. I think all 6 of those I would categorize as losable, especially with the type of defense that I expect them to be playing. I think that a good Lincoln Riley team is always capable of winning a shootout, even a shootout they're not necessarily supposed to be in. So I think that they're going to win a majority of those. I have them at losing 3 regular season games. And I think it's going to all come in that last six weeks. So I have them at 9-3, so I'm going to go slightly under. And it's largely just the defense. I think the offense is going to be, you might even see them ranked number 1 this year. Who knows? But it's going to be a very high-powered offense. Deuce Robinson coming in at tight end. Mario Williams still at wide receiver. I mean, just a lot of offensive firepower with Lincoln Riley calling the shots. The defense is going to cost them, and it's probably going to cost them against those teams towards the end of the season. Washington, Oregon, Utah, maybe Notre Dame. They don't go through there unscathed.
This is another classic case of the Pac-12 doing what is worse, like what's worse for the Pac-12. Do you see when USC's bye is? Their bye week is September 16th.
Oh,
they
boy.
then play 9 games in a row, including those last 6 games where they play Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA in 6 weeks. Yeah, this could be a better team than last year with a worse record. And I'm with you. I'm going under 9.5. The schedule's brutal. They bring in a few faces on defense, but even in the Pac-12, we saw that USC played close games last year. When they played teams that were more physical than them, they got beat when they played Utah. They get Oregon on the schedule where they didn't have them on the schedule last year. So that's another team that is bigger and deeper on both sides of the line of scrimmage than USC is. So, look, this offense is going to be electric. It's probably going to be the best offense in college football this year. You return the Heisman Trophy winner. I think Caleb Williams probably has the best chance in recent history of a Heisman Trophy winner to repeat, just because I don't know who that guaranteed second quarterback is that's going to be playing for a national title contender and that's going to put up the stats that he will. Yeah, I feel like the ones who might compete are going to be new quarterbacks, so like Ohio State, Common Core, Georgia with Carson Beck. I don't think an Alabama quarterback is going to compete for the Heisman this year, but you never know. LSU, Jaden Daniels, like Florida State, Jordan Travis, but and Drake May probably the most talented, but in North Carolina, I mean, I said they're going to go 7-5, so obviously I don't believe they're going to be contending for a national title this year. So I do think Caleb Williams has a legitimate chance to repeat as a Heisman winner. Which has that ever been done?
Yeah, Archie Griffin,
Okay.
Ohio State, 74-75 or 75-76.
Is it the only one?
I think so.
Okay.
Tebow, he
didn't, but he was a finalist. Like
he won it his sophomore year, and then he was a finalist his junior and senior year.
So we'll see. I mean, they bring in the Pac-12's leading receiver over from Arizona and Dorian Singer. I mean, why not? When you're playing Lincoln Riley's offense, it can go be a high draft pick. Again, they bring in some transfers on defense. I just don't think in 1 year, you need more help than 2 starters in defensive line. You just need more help. And they're starting to recruit better. But, I mean, Josh Pate talked about this on his show that he talked to a high-profile SEC defensive coordinator, and they're saying the scheme isn't all that bad, but it might be a culture problem, and not like a program culture problem, but they just not value defense and hard hitting. Like, is that a culture problem in Lincoln Riley's program? And I don't know. I haven't been on a college staff. I don't know what that looks like. I haven't been inside of a college program, but that's something that was said on his show. Go check out The Late Kick with Josh Pate. But I just don't trust that this defense is going to get turned around. Daniel, let me ask you this. If USC has the best offense of college football, which Bill Conley's SP Plus projects them to be this year, how good does the defense have to be for them to be a national title contender?
A national title contender?
Not playoff contender, national title contender.
I would say top 40 defense to be a national title contender.
So SU Plus has them as potentially 39th defense this year. Is that good enough?
Ugh. I mean, apparently, again, according to my metrics I just gave you, yes. I don't know if they're going to be able to be that with Alex Grinch as the DC.
We will see. So USC, you were both going 9-3. Let's go to the other team that has a 9.5 win total, and that is the Oregon Ducks. With a 9.5 win total. Daniel, how do you feel about Dan Lanning's Ducks?
Yeah, we'll talk about his offensive coordinator a little bit later because Kenny Dillingham does leave for a head coaching job. That's my only concern with this team is that they are replacing their offensive coordinator. Will Stein and Junior Adams are going to be co-coordinators. Their first year doing that. Obviously, they still have the same defensive staff, and of course, Dan Lanning being a defensive guy. Not worried there. They're returning technically 5 on offense and 7 starters on defense. But with that, they've got Jordan Birch transferring from South Carolina. He's a big-time defensive end. He never quite got lived up to his 5-star billing, top 3 player in his class at South Carolina. That could have been what was around him. It could have been several things. We do know that he's out there now. He was recruited by Lanning when Lanning was at Georgia, so that's kind of that relationship there. Obviously, Mateo DJ U's brother. I'm about to ruin that last name. He's out there as well. He's a 5-star defensive end. But man, Bo Nix coming back for a 6-year senior year. You were just asking, who is going to be an obvious challenge for the Heisman. I said if Bo Nix didn't get hurt last year, he's probably number 2 for the Heisman. I think that's how good of a year he was having. He gets hurt towards the end, and comes out. But 29 touchdowns last year, 3,500 yards. Obviously, they're returning Bucky Irving at running back. He's got over 1,000 yards last year. I think that's huge. Bringing in Trayshawn Holden, a transfer from Alabama at wide receiver. Defensively, they've got several guys who I think are kind of ready to step into big time spots. Kyrie Jackson transferring in, Dante Manning, former 5-star at corner. They've just got several great players, I think. And based on what they did last year, again, I don't know what to attribute how much of it to Kenny Dillingham as offensive coordinator last year versus Bo Nix, what that's going to look like, if it's going to change a whole lot. If they keep anything close to the same on offense, I do think that they actually take a big step forward. And last year they had 10 wins. I mean, their 10th win, of course, coming in the bowl game, but 9 regular season wins. I could see them easily doing that. I think they're going to go over the 9.5. I have them at 10-2 this year. It is a tough schedule, but again, I think that they're one of those teams that can do it. They lose Georgia off the schedule from last year, replace them with Portland State, much more palatable team to play opening your season. And they really start the season the way you want to. Portland State at Texas Tech, Hawaii, again, in Oregon, in Eugene, Colorado, and then at Stanford. So they're going to be able to build a 5-0 record prior to playing at Washington. And so I think any of the issues that I foresee happening at offensive coordinator, I think can pretty much be rectified by that point. And they have a good identity. That's really what you're searching for when you have a new offensive coordinator or a quarterback change. You want that identity to manifest itself. I think it'll be well manifested by that point. they'll have a lot of confidence. They'll have a lot of stats to hang their hats on, and then they'll kind of go through the brunt of their schedule at that point. And like I said, I think they're going to come out better than not in most of those games. I've got them at 10-2, going over that 9.5.
We're 2 for 2. I'm also going 10-2 for Oregon. I'm going over here. This is the best team on both sides of the line of scrimmage in the Pac-12. Getting Bo Nix back is huge because he was a Heisman contender, as you mentioned. Like, he played phenomenal. If he stays healthy, I mean, Oregon believes that was their best recruiting win of the season, was getting him to stay an extra year at Oregon. He had his best season of his college career last year, and now this is his real contract year. He doesn't get another chance after this. So schedule stuff. The schedule is backloaded. So I do think that is going to be a problem the second half of the season, where again, the Pac-12 is kind of screwing themselves out of a playoff berth here because the schedule is back half loaded. So I don't think they're good enough to get through this with one loss or less. But 10-2, again, I mentioned last episode, I go through every game and I give every team a either a full win, like guaranteed, like no way they're losing this. 3/4 of a win, you should win. Half of a win, coin flip. A quarter of a win, probably shouldn't win this game, or 0. Dude, I got to a total of 10 for Oregon doing that. And so I was like, cool, 10-2. So I feel good about that. The defense should take a step forward this year. This could be a top 5 offense in college football. And I don't say that lightly, power rating wise. So I like Oregon a lot this year, and I like them to go 10-2, and I like them in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 championship game. Love it. And of course, the Pac-12, as they did last season, no divisions, top 2 teams going to the Pac-12 championship. So I have Oregon playing for the Pac-12 championship. All right. Next on our win totals list is Washington. Washington has a win total of 9. Year 2 of Kalen DeBoer, 11-2 last year. How do you feel about the Huskies?
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be fun. Similar to, I mean, the first 2 teams we talked about, you got returning quarterback, and he was a good one. He was a Heisman contender as well. I think he'll contend this year. Michael Penix Jr., is this going to be the best conference for quarterbacks? Talking about the Pac-12. This may be their year to have kind of that light shine on them. They return what we're calling it 7 starters on offense, 7 on defense. From a team that went 11-2 total last year, 10-2 in the regular season. Very good season last year. Obviously, the rub with everything, the offensive coordinator was actually approached by Alabama to come in and take over for them prior to them moving forward with Tommy Rees from Notre Dame. So that's got to, make Husky fans proud, knowing that, maybe the premier program of our generation, the premier coach of our generation, was looking for their offensive coordinator to be, the replacement, the next guy. And he turned them down. He wanted to stay for one more year for whatever reason, but I'm guessing Michael Penix Jr. was one of those big reasons. He had a great season last year, 4,600 yards in the air, 31 touchdowns. I mean, doing it with his legs as well. They do have, somewhat of a tough out-of-conference schedule, relatively speaking. I mean, Boise State's not a pushover. They open with them. They play against Tulsa. Tulsa has, been sneaky good the past few years, specifically on defense. And then they play at Michigan State. So I think that's a little tough. Is theirs an even 9?
Even
Where
9.
we at? Even 9? Cowards.
Cowards.
But that being said, they are, they do get, I mean, Oregon State, Utah, USC, and Oregon on the schedule. I like them to go 9-3. I really do.
Push.
I really like the push. I think that's probably, I'm just going to stick straight on They were the cowards and gave us the even number. I'm sticking with 9-3. Give me the Huskies at 9-3.
I will be not the coward, and I'll go over on this win total. I like Washington to go 10-2 this year, and Washington, the out of conference schedule, I'm not as worried about, but I mean, I think they go 3-0 in the non-con. Same thing where the schedule's back half loaded, and so they get Oregon at home off of a bye. Like their road games are at Michigan State, which you talked about, but at Stanford, at USC, at Oregon State. Man, of those, like at USC is definitely the toughest. But again, there's very few games that I'm like, ooh, it's like that's like a quarter of a win. Like it's like you're leaning more towards a loss than a coin flip. This offense should be one of the most explosive in college football. Again, like you mentioned, Ryan Grubb, dude, he got a raise at $2 million a year to stay at Washington. Like they know they've got something special with him. Penix, when he's on, he's on. He's got a big arm. His legs are phenomenal. They've got one of the best wide receiver duos in the country with Jalen McClellan and Roma Dunze. One of the best wide receiver duos in the country with Penix's arm. Their offensive line should be really good again this year. Defense should take another step forward. Like, again, consistent team in the Pac-12 last year. I expect more of the same this year. And I have, last year we had two formerly Pac-12 South teams playing for the Pac-12 championship. I think this year we're going to have two formal Pac-12 North teams playing for the Pac-12 championship. I've got Washington meeting Oregon in Las Vegas, 10-2, playing for a Pac-12 championship. So I expect big things out of Washington this year. Let's go, Daniel. Next in the win total list, the back-to-back Pac-12 champs, Utah, sleeping on them again, 8.5 wins. When are we going to learn, Daniel?
Obviously, you haven't, because you're already picking Oregon and Washington to go to Las Vegas. So I think we all noticed, 2 years ago when Cam Rising took over, Utah kind of sparked and was different. Last year, that start of the season in Gainesville against Florida, they lose that game. Obviously, at one point, they probably think, okay, Florida might be pretty good. Then they see kind of what happened, and they credit it to, hey, maybe we just lost a tough one on the road. That's a tough place to play, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in Gainesville. That being said, they get Florida in their house this year. I think the line's already come out on that game. Utah favored by 9. I would lay those points for what it's worth. I think Utah is a strong team this year. Obviously, Cam Rising is his third year starting at quarterback. 6 returning starters offense, 7 on defense. Non-conference, it's a little tough. I mean, Florida, for what it's worth, they're still a name program. And then they play at Baylor week 2. Third week they get Weber State at home, so kind of back to getting an easy win there. But they've got USC, Oregon, Washington. They're playing at USC and at Washington. At Oregon State is also going to be kind of a tough one. All that to be said, is 8.5 or is it 8?
8.5 for Utah.
Okay. Look, I can't keep doubting them. I don't think that they're going to go 10-2 or 11-1 or anything like that. But 9-3, that's not out of the question. So let me just put them at 9-3. All right. Regardless, I think they're going to go over. Cal Whittingham is a fringe top 10 coach in the game. And he's been just model of consistency. And every time that one of these more talented, better power rated teams with Heisman contenders is supposed to do something, somehow he always ends up on top. So maybe we're overlooking them again. I mean, I'm giving them 3 losses, but I'm still going to go over. So 9-3 Utah Utes.
I'm with you. 9-3. I'm not really doubting them. I'm going over on the win total. So I'm a believer in Utah. Yeah, this should be a top 25 offense and defense in college football. This should be a solid, like, top 15 to 20 team this year, which is what Utah has been the last few years under Kyle Whittingham. So I expect more of the same. Like, they play at USC this year. That's a road game. You mentioned, like, at Oregon State, at Baylor. That's a sneaky game after the home game against Florida. So again, Utah, come on now. What are you doing? Just schedule cupcakes in your non-con and go in the Pac-12. Because I do think those first two games, if you come out 2-0, it's a big, big, big win. Like, I think it's more likely you come out 1-1 of those two games. Like, I don't think Utah is this just top 10 team and that Baylor and Florida are these, bottom 20 teams. No, like, Baylor and Florida can be top 40 teams in college football. And I think Utah is probably a top 15 to 20 team in college football. So you're more likely to go 1-1 of those games. The Pac-12 schedule, you go at Washington, at USC, you get Oregon at home. But dude, they play of this top tier in the Pac-12, which I'm saying Utah, USC, Oregon, Washington, Oregon State, UCLA. They play all 5 of those other 6 teams in that top tier. So that's going to be tough. That's a tough schedule. I'm still going over on the win total. And so I am a believer in Utah, but they definitely got the toughest draw of that top tier. I think the schedule is too brutal to go double digits. So 9-3 for Utah is how I'm feeling. With Utah at 8.5 wins also is UCLA. So UCLA at 8.5 wins. They're coming off of a season which last year they got 9-3 last year. Yeah. Lost the bowl game. Right?
Yeah, they
9-4.
9-3 lost the bowl game to Pittsburgh.
Boom. So win totals at 8.5. Vegas expecting more of the same from UCLA. You get a high profile recruit and Dante Moore coming in, 5-star. He probably going to start UCLA this year. How are you feeling about the Bruins?
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like he might be penciled in there as a starter. They're counting on several new guys, whether it be transfer or freshman coming in. First year in like 13 years that Dorian Thompson-Robinson isn't starting at quarterback for them, so should be interesting to see. This Chip Kelly offense, it's not the easiest, I don't think, for a freshman to get and to run well. So I'm interested to see, because Dante Moore is going to come in, obviously the most talented guy. You would think he's going to make that jump and be the guy. I'd like to see how early he's able to mesh with this system and how, I know he's built for the system, but how well is he going to master it early on? This schedule, it is what it is. Like we've talked about, that great upper middle class of the Pac-12 is just tough. They've got Utah, Oregon State. They have USC. They get to miss Oregon on the schedule. They get to miss Washington on the schedule. So that's they get to miss 2 of them. That being said, they're playing, Coastal Carolina, which that's going to be a booger to play. I'll actually be interested to see what happens in that game. That's an opening weekend. But, San Diego State, NC Central should be able to take care of them. All this to be said, I'm curious with all these newcomers, how much that they can retain and turn things around. 8.5, I feel more comfortable going under, even with a lighter schedule. I think that missing out on Oregon and Washington should make me feel like the over is a slam dunk, but I don't quite feel that way with just all the turnover. So I'm going to actually say just slightly under. 8-4, I feel comfortable with UCLA.
So with UCLA, I'm going to go slightly over. I'm going to go 9-3 here, and it's mainly because of the schedule. So they're, like you said, they miss a few of those big dogs that Utah doesn't miss, and therefore I'm going to go 9-3. I think that Dante Moore comes in and is a great fit for the Chip Kelly offense. I'm not saying that, losing DTR is just not a big deal. But I mean, you're getting Dante Moore, so I think that's a big deal. The defense, I mean, this should be a top 30 unit on both sides of the ball this year. Again, I think the top half of the Pac-12 is really good. I liked this is the upper middle class of college football. So I like UCLA this year. Chip Kelly, I mean, believe it or not, this is his 6th year at UCLA, which seems like he just got here. And I think that 9-3 is solid for UCLA in their last year in the Pac-12. So I'm going to go over for UCLA 9-3. All right, kind of the last team in this top half with a win total of 8 is Oregon State. So Oregon State coming off of a season in which they had their best year under oh my goodness, under Jonathan Smith. I'm like, he's my guy.
I was like, dude, he's literally your guy.
They went 9-3. I sold stock for Oregon State heading into this season. Daniel, how do you feel about Oregon State with a win total of 8?
Yeah, I mean, they're going, based on what they did last year, winning 9 regular season games, obviously winning their 10th game against Florida in impressive fashion in the bowl game. They lose, quarterback, and they lose, several starters, but I mean, they've got 7 guys back on offense, 5 on defense. DJ Uiagalelei transfers in from Clemson. I think there's going to be some optimism there that they can kind of, not regress down a whole lot, maybe sustain some success. But the fact of the matter is they've still got Washington and Oregon on the schedule. They miss USC, so that's really good to just not have that one. And then their non-conference games are all winnable. So that's really good. I think their first 4 games, I feel really good about them winning. And then they play Utah at home. That's where I start to have questions. I think they probably lose to Utah. At Cal is going to be, one of those teams that's just a tough out. I don't necessarily think Cal is going to be great or anything like that this year, but I think that they're going to be a tough out, and they have to play them on the road. They come home, play UCLA, go to Arizona, which Arizona, much improved team. We'll talk about them in a moment. From last year, they're much improved. 8 wins. That feels like where they should be. I'm counting out losses. I think Utah is a loss. I think Washington and Oregon are losses. They run the rest of the table, which I don't know if they're good enough to do. That'd be 9-3 again. That's a tall task, but you know what? I don't want to push again. I'm going 9-3. Give me Oregon State, the Beavs, over. Give me 9-3, Oregon State.
Love it. So I sold stock on our stock episode, and now I'm regretting it after seeing the win total, because I'm also going to go over. I think they go 9-3 this year. The schedule's balance and how it's set up, I'll say, like, dissimilar to it as being a murderer's row at the end of the schedule, like it is for USC this year. They got a big talent upgrade this year. Like, they started using the portal a little bit. Like, this is a more talented team than last year's team. They went 3-2 and 1-score games last year. So by that, I mean not fluky. So
right.
you split your 1-score game, which is how it, in a perfect world it would be. And they went 9-3. So, they did that again. They're right back here at 9-3. I think 8's a really good number to win total, but I didn't want to be a coward. So I'm like, you know what? Jonathan Smith's my guy. Let's just go 9-3 and be the new kings of the Pac-12 in the new Pac-12 next year with the Beavers. I think Oregon State goes 9-3. I like the over here for Oregon State. All right, that's the top half of the Pac-12. That's the upper middle class. Not the rest of the Pac-12 is trash, but I think, in my opinion, there is a big gap between the top 6 teams and the bottom 6 teams in the Pac-12. So this next tier, you'll see it's a big drop of win total from 8 to 6.5 with Washington State as that next team. How are you feeling about the Cougars?
So now we're talking about the working class. All right, these people are paycheck to paycheck. They're not necessarily poor. They're still probably going to a bowl game. But Washington State Cougs. Um, I mean, Cam Ward coming back for another year after last year having 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns, but he was making a big jump coming from Incarnate Word to Washington State. So you're coming up in level of competition. Obviously, he brought his coach with him. I look for him to take another step forward. They've got 6 guys returning on offense, 5 on defense. He doesn't have a lot of production coming back at receiver. He's got, his running back, Nakia Watson, back as a senior. So that's nice as far as production goes. But they've got Wisconsin on the non-conference schedule. And then, add to it, they play Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Oregon State. So they're playing a lot of that upper echelon of the Pac-12. They do get to miss Utah and USC. So 6.5, I actually feel comfortable with them potentially going over that, being at 7-5. I don't think that's crazy to think. If they can win their other out-of-conference games, lose to Wisconsin, I feel comfortable with them at 7-5. So I'm going to go slightly over.
I had a lot of overs in the first half. Here comes some unders. Going under with Washington State. The schedule's tough. I hate that Wisconsin's on the schedule. Again, when I did my win counter, I got 2-6. And so I think 6-6, bowl games, another solid season. They do bring in some interesting coaches. So they bring in Ben Arbuckle, who was the co-OC at Western Kentucky last year, who led the country in scoring. And then they bring in Schmedding, who was at Auburn last year with Harsin. He was also with Harsin at Boise State, SSDC as well. So some I think cool fit coaches that I think are going to fit a lot better at Washington State than at their previous stops. So curious how that staff works out this year. This is Jake Dickert's first year, replacing both coordinators as a head coach. So interested to see how that's going to go. But I feel like 6-6 in a bowl game is a solid season for the Cougars. All right. Also a relatively new coach in the Pac-12. This is going to be year 2 for no. This is year 3 for Jedd Fisch. That's right. Year 2 is last year. So also year 3, Jedd Fisch, Arizona. Their win total set at 5.5. Went 5-7 last year, which is a huge improvement. Also not off the field, but huge improvement in their uniforms last year as well. So big deal on this podcast. How do you feel about the Wildcats this year?
Yeah, so they get of that top group that we talked about, they get Utah, USC, they get Oregon State, Washington. They miss Oregon this year, so that's good. But they have Mississippi State and UTEP. UTEP is going to be a good team this year. And as far as for their classification and what they do, or their division, everything like that, it's going to be tough to get over that 5.5 mark. Obviously, super proud of them for what they did last year. They're bringing back a ton on offense, not a lot on defense from what they had last year, but their quarterback, 3,700 yards last year, 25 touchdowns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know you're counting wins. I feel like I'm just counting losses. Man, they beat Arizona State last year. Do they beat Arizona State again? That's kind of the line for me of if they're going to get to that 6th win. You know what? I'm going to go over. I'll say 6-6 for them. I feel like I'm saying over too much, but I'm going over for Arizona. I'll have a few unders here coming up, but yeah, Arizona, I have them right there at 6-6. Slight improvement.
I told you I had a lot of overs. I got another under here for Arizona, which I hate, but right at 5-7. I think 5.5 is a really, really good number. again, you play at Mississippi State in the non-con. You play 5 of the top 6 in the Pac-12. And then like games like at Colorado, like Colorado's looking at Arizona and being like, that's a must. Like we have to have that win if we want any chance at a good season. So you go at Arizona State. I think that game's a toss up. I mean, Arizona should be in a better place in year 3 than year 1 with Kenny Dillingham. Um, I hate they lost their top receiver to USC. That stinks. But again, this should be a like top 40 offense, like top 60 defense in college football. So, solid team. I don't think they're gonna make a bowl game though. Arizona 5-7. Doesn't mean I'm not a believer in Jed Fish, but 5-7 for the Wildcats. All right, next in our win totals is their rival, Arizona State, at a flat 5. Year 1 of Kenny Dillingham, who was the offensive coordinator at Oregon last year. He is an alum of Arizona State. He comes home. Cool to see that. 3-9 last year. Win total set at 5. So Vegas season improvement coming. How do you feel about Arizona State?
Yeah, if I could buy stock in the program as a whole, I probably would, because Dillingham has talked about this being his dream job, because he really wanted to stay at Oregon. This job just came available, and it's the only one he would leave for. So they got their guy. He got his job that he wanted. So assuming he's successful, which I feel like he is going to be, he's been very good as offensive coordinator thus far. So like to see what he does here. This is, they do bring in Drew Pine, transfer quarterback from Notre Dame, who started most of the season last year with Tyler Buckner being injured. Drew Pine is a solid quarterback. I think it's definitely more of a floor raiser than a ceiling raiser. So I don't think that they're going to do anything special with Drew Pine, but maybe they avoid disaster. I like this number being at 5 because I was kind of toying with a few things. They have Oklahoma State on the schedule. I think that that's probably going to be a loss. And then they do have USC, Washington, Utah, UCLA, Oregon, all on the schedule. And like we just mentioned, Arizona State and Arizona, obviously that's their rival. They're going to play each other in the season. Just counting up those, I feel like 6, 7. Yeah, I think 5-7 might be their ceiling. So 5 wins, I'd be nervous to say anything about an over. I've got them under slightly. I've got them at 4-8 for the season. But I do think overall Kenny Dillingham will be successful here. He's just going to have some time and really get the culture right, get everything going in the right direction.
I'm going to be a coward here and just push. I like 5-7. I think it's a good record. Again, tougher out of conference schedule. At the end of the season's a murderer's row. I mean, after your bye, you get Washington, Washington State, Utah, UCLA, Oregon, Arizona, back to back to back to back. I think it's a lot of losses. Get some wins at the beginning when you can. Go upset Oklahoma State at home. That'd be awesome. But 5-7 year 1, I think is a solid year 1 for Kenny Dillingham and program. All right, Daniel, we got 3 teams left. The Cal Bears at 4.5 wins. How do you feel about David Cobb's California Bears?
Yeah, they're returning. They're not returning any production at quarterback. That not even their backups have had snaps. So that's an interesting nugget there. Justin Wilcox has been solid so far. They just don't really. The administration doesn't care enough for me or care enough for them to be good. I think playing Auburn week 2, they do get them at home, but that's out of conference. I think at North Texas early in the season is sneaky because North Texas team is a tough out. They've got Washington, Oregon State, Utah, USC, Oregon,
They play
and
all
UCLA
6.
all on the schedule. What's our win total at? 4.5?
4.5.
Yeah, they're going under. I like them at 4-8.
Yeah, I've got Cal at 5-7, slightly over. I just think they'll win the games they should, and man, that's a miserable schedule. Yeah, they're the only team in the Pac-12 that plays each of the top 6 teams. So that's why that win total is down there at 4.5. You get Auburn out of conference too. It is at home, but I don't like your chances in that game. But 5-7, I'll go slightly over here in honor of David Cobb, slightly over for the Cal Bears. But you're at 4-8 with Cal.
Yep, that's right.
All right. With a win total at 3, let's go ahead and talk about Colorado, Deion Sanders, the Buffs. Everyone's got an opinion on Colorado. Daniel, what is your opinion on Colorado?
Honestly, I'm excited to watch and see what happens. This has been so much player movement in and out, especially out. I don't really know what to believe. I don't think they're going to be very good. I think that's just going to be kind of the, nature of it. Even though we know a lot of the players, Shadur Sanders, obviously, Deion's son transfers in from Jackson State, along with former number 1 overall player, Travis Hunter. And he's projected to start at corner, and he's probably going to be their top, at least I would imagine top pass catcher, top target, especially big time plays.
He's going to play a lot of offense.
Jimmy Horn Jr., I do like him a good bit. And then, you've got Cormani McLean coming in as a true freshman. He was a 5-star. And he spurned, who was it, Florida maybe? And
Florida State.
Florida State, okay. So several.
Or no. Sorry, he was Miami.
Miami, okay. It was one of the big 3 in Florida, or the previous big 3 at least. So, yeah, these guys are all – he's got players that, he's got a lot of freshmen coming in, and then these transfers. He's got so many transfers, I don't even know if they know what number they are yet. But the schedule is just not going to be super kind to them. They start out at TCU, then they come home, play Nebraska, play Oregon, USC, UCLA, Oregon State, Utah. I mean, shoot, I think they're losing to like Arizona State. I have them, was 3.5?
So flat 3.
Flat 3. Okay, that makes it a little bit tougher. I could see them potentially getting up to 3, but it's way more likely they go under than they go over. So I'm just gonna go under. We'll see what happens. I'll at least officially say 2-10.
Colorado will be the ultimate experiment this year because we've never seen anything like this ever in college football. So
Right.
I have no idea what to think. I think a win total at 3, Vegas is saying, we'll close our eyes and throw a dart at the board and put it at 3. I'll go 3-9 for Colorado. I think there is a chance that this team pops and has some really good moments. I don't think that there's a chance that this team just goes 9-3. There's no way. I think a bowl game is even a pipe dream. So again, this is a team that won at 11 last year, but the majority of that roster is gone. So I have no idea what to think about Colorado. Excited to watch, but not excited to watch on the same level as the A tier in college football. It's just intrigued. So we'll see. It'll be a show regardless, but I'm gonna go 3-9, push for Colorado. That leaves us with Stanford, which is also sitting at a win total of 3. Did the Cardinals just need to quit playing football? What's up?
Yeah, either that or I don't. They've just got. They do have a new head coach, so for what it's worth, I don't know. We'll see, but it's gonna be tough sledding for them. Are they at 2.5?
Flat 3.
Flat 3. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't feel good with how they went 3-9 last year. Schedule is at least equal to last year, maybe a little tougher. So I'm gonna go under. I don't like this schedule for them. I mean, it's tough to like a schedule when the team's not very good. So that's really where I'm at. So I'm gonna go under. I think 2-10 as well for them.
Troy Taylor coached at Sacramento State last year. That's on the schedule this year. That's not an automatic win. It's not. Like
Right.
there could be a revenge factor there. So, I'm. You said 2-10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going 2-10. I mean, in 2018 they went 9-4. Since then they've gone 4-8. Yeah, the COVID year they went 4-2, 3-9, 3-9, 2-10. I don't know if Stanford can win in this era of college football unless a lot of stuff changes with the University of Stanford, or if college football changes and we have, many franchises that you're just using the school as a licensing agreement. But I don't know if Stanford would do that, to be honest. So I just don't think this new era of college football is for Stanford. Hey, Troy Taylor, a heck of a coach, though. I'd love to see him turn it around. But again, I mean, on your schedule, you got Notre Dame at a conference as your rival. Got a game at Colorado. That is a must win for Colorado. Like I said, Sacramento State's not an automatic win. You play at Hawaii in week 1. That's not fun to go travel out there. So tough sledding. 2-10 for Stanford. And that'll wrap up our Pac-12. Be sure to follow us here at the Extra Point, at the Extra Point Pod on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We'll be posting next week with, oh goodness, next week is the Big 12. So Big 12 next week. Excited for that one. And you can follow him on Twitter at the South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. That'll do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He's Daniel. I'm Jake.